Hey, everybody, welcome back to People of Earth Season 1, Episode 2. Today's guest is Keith Newsome, a cat that I've had the privilege of knowing for over 25 years, going back to when we did small press comic books together. Today, we'll cover a number of topics, anywhere from art, music, inspirations, and overcoming adversity. I couldn't be happier to introduce you to Keith. He is a wonderful individual, and you'll also notice that this is one of the first videos where I start trying to do a little bit of editing, and some of it's better than others. So bear with me as we continue to grow here. Thanks, and with that, I present Mr. Keith Newsome.
Welcome to People of Earth.
Keith
Right.
Newsome.
Hi, how you doing?
Take two. I'll give away the
We've been
secret,
here.
but yeah. All right. Thanks for joining me on this new venture, this new podcast where I get to talk to people that I've known, get to know them a little bit better, find out some things that I never knew,
Yeah.
and talk with people that have inspired me in life, and then I want to share you with others and
Cool.
lessons learned, tips, tricks, some advice that you may have to give. So as we talk about things, I'm hoping that people will be able to pick up some stuff that means something to them. And
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
you learn
absolutely.
one thing, right?
Yeah.
It's worth the time.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us.
Well, it was a pleasure. Always enjoy being here. I love my brother here. He's a great dude. So if you can do the podcast with him, do the podcast.
So we go back a number of years, a few decades, in fact, if it were.
Yep.
We started together. I think we kind of just quickly got thrown together into a small press comic book
Yep.
company, Hunter
100
Productions.
Productions.
Eventually, we broke off, did Broken Glass Studios. That was a short, quick, chaotic adventure, I would say.
It was fun, though.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a blast.
So I wanted to have you talk with me here, and as by way of introductions, Keith Newsome, artist, musician, father, board member, as well as all around great guy. And I say that not half-heartedly. I know
Appreciate that. I appreciate that.
everybody that I've ever talked to seems to know you. If I just end up in a conversation about comic books, somebody already knows you.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever had a bad thing to say about
I
you.
appreciate that. Well, I always try to treat people like I want to be treated. And I figured why be so negative about things? I don't go into politics. I don't go into whatever, anything that's going on. I just stay on the positive end of things. I try to stay true to myself. And I just want to make everybody happy. If I can make you smile, make you laugh, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, to dig into our conversation today, I wanted to ask. So, in the intro, I alluded to all the things that you're involved in, and wanted to know a little bit from you of like, how do you balance all your interests? When you have a lot of interest, it's great. It shows you're passionate about
Right.
things, but it's also time consuming.
True.
So, when you talk about the disparity of getting into music and art and haunt, and we'll talk through these various things as we go, but how do you find some balance?
The balance is figuring my day out. I remember I was talking to my lead guitarist a long time ago, and he said, Keith, you're a good bass player. He goes, and you're a good artist. If you quit one, you would be great at the other. I'm like, yeah, but I kind of like both. And then I met you, and I learned how to do Photoshop. And I'm like, hey, this is fun too. So I played with that. And so I've been drawing comics and artwork and monsters and stuff since I was in fifth grade. Then I got on up from that, I got into makeup. Then I got into music. And music was my main passion. So for my day I'm with my son during the day. He had a brain tumor taken out, so I'm with him during the day. He's good now, but I still watch him. So during that time, I do all my Photoshop stuff, do my flyers, I do artwork on my iPad, do many small press comic books, drawings, I do paintings. And it's just more than that, it's a release for me from all the tension and all the stuff that's going on in life. Music, I do Tuesday nights, I teach bass. I play whenever I can at home. I have my own room with all my stuff, amps. I've got $10,000 worth of equipment, 6 basses, 4 amps, and pedals and all that junk. But If it hits me, I try to get it in as quickly as possible. In fact, I get to the point now where I'm doing so much, I forget stuff. So I have to, as soon as I sit down, I have to write it out or send myself a text. Remember this. And then I got myself a calendar now. So now Saturdays are playing stuff on, in a studio kind of thing. And then I'm also playing on Tuesday nights and I play at church. And then I go like tomorrow or Thursday night, yeah, I'll be going running sound for them. I play bass for them. And I restructure all this stuff, but it's just a delicate balance to keep me sane
Mhm.
because I find that I don't like one being 62 and overweight and big and disabled. I'm looking at my life going, okay, you only have a few more days left. What do you plan on doing with them? So now I take each day and I try to make it productive in some kind of way.
Yeah.
So that's my time frame is just any minute I got to relax, I can do that when I'm sleeping.
You've never struck me as someone passive. You've always got something
Right.
going.
I'm always welcome to do something new.
Yeah.
And I've always said you never know till you try it. Just
Yeah.
like food. Who knew guacamole would be so good? But man, it's good. It looks like crap, but boy, it's good.
So you've already surprised me. I would have thought art would have been before music. So you said music's more predominant for you, but you also said that you couldn't have kind of one without the other. So
Right.
is it just that creative outlet, whether it's song or written art?
They
You just
they've always coincided.
okay.
Music's been part of my life as far as I can remember because my entire side of my dad's family and mom's family are musical. I remember being like 5 or 6 years old, and my uncle was in my living room jamming to, the Beatles or something. And I'm like, this is cool. And going in my bedroom and playing a broomstick and singing the song. And so that's always been part of it. And the creative side is part of it because I look at art and music are the same thing. You can do anything you want. It can be abstract, it can be crazy, it can be prog music, it could be prog paint. What did you want to do? It could be progressive, abstract, it can be structured. Both of them intertwine so much, it's so easier for me to fall in either one.
So that said, at least from my observation, as you mentioned the iPad and you've been doing more digital work like that in the last couple years,
Yeah,
how's that transition been for you? And I'll tee it up for you by saying, at least from my eyes, I've seen you branch out just using that medium, trying things I've never seen you try before.
correct.
So
Before, I was always, if you remember back in the BGS days, people walk up and they show me the portfolio. I was supposed to be the comic guy, the editor, or whatever you
mhm,
want to call him. And people would show me the artwork, and I would tell them, remember, do what you're good at. If you can spread yourself thin, you're going to be good here. Good. This goes back to what my guitarist said. You can do a lot of things, but find one thing and be great at it. And then, so I stuck with pencil and paper. That was my medium. Then I got into storytelling. I could write a little bit. That's kind of cool. But I still stuck with pencil. And then I found out I could really draw dragons pretty cool. So,
pretty good, yes.
so I started doing that a lot more. And then when I got into music, that kind of like went to the wayside, and it has to be something that hits you. But then my cousin called me, who I taught how to draw. He called me and said, "You need this." And I'm like, "Well," but he goes, "No, trust me, you need this." So he gave me three options. One was the iPad Pro 12. And I'm like, if I'm going to do this, let's do it right. And so I got it, put Photoshop on it, was not happy.
Yeah,
Like, this sucks. And
yeah.
then he said, no, 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 use Procreate.
Hmm.
And so I got it, and it's so much like Photoshop
Yeah.
now for me because now it's even easier for me in Photoshop. And I can use the stylus, and I start painting. When I first got it, I was kind of messing around, and then I found out, man, I have all these brushes. Then I ordered more brushes, and then so I tried each brush. I went through everything, and then I would try each thing on it, and now it becomes secondary, where I got my favorites I use, um, different layers, and it's just branched me out, like you said, so much more. I never thought I'd be an oil painter,
Hmm.
but when I found out that when I would go to rehab with my son and I would sit there and watch these people go in and come out. And I think my first painting was him. He was leaning forward in his chair, in a wheelchair, and he couldn't use his left side. and all I seen was this purple thing, and so I started painting it in my head. He had already went back. I kept painting, and it's called Bound, and it's a very
I know the one
powerful.
you're talking about.
Yeah, and everybody looks at it and goes, "Wow!" And I still get chill bumps. But there was one guy that come in, and I can't remember the girl's name. She had an eye patch. She had been hit by a truck, and she could barely walk. Her dad would come in every day and wheel her in, and I'd watch her and him and his dad. She was like, "Are you going to do this? It's going to be great. You're going to be great." And then he was tying her shoe, and they wheeled her back, and he just sat on the floor, started bawling, and he was kneeling down. So I just started. He walked away, and I started painting that, and it's just a way to let that pain and all stuff out, and that's where before, like in '84 when my grandmother passed away, I would walk in, turn my bass on, shut the door, and I'd play bass for hours. And that was my let go. Now it's this. So it's also a stress relief, and it calms you down, and it's also expressive, and it becomes music is one way, and it makes you feel, it takes you back in time, just like a smell. But this is something I can look at, and emotionally it really sets me off.
Yeah.
So
Well, and when you say about the oil painting, just to inject my own, like, I came from a very poor background. Um, I had no money for any utensils or anything, so I never did any art with any paints or watercolors or anything
right,
like that. So once we got to this digital age, that alone allowed me just let loose and
yeah,
try stuff that I never would have had exposure to in the past. So I know you've had a lot more, exposure and availability to deal with some of these things and try some stuff out. But I hadn't seen you take that leap, even though you had Photoshop and stuff like that.
right,
You were still traditionally working, in pencils or inks and things
correct,
like that, and then doing post processing.
yeah,
But to see you like start with a fresh slate, a fresh canvas using new tools, yeah, I just saw a different side of you. It was
yeah.
cool.
I would suggest it to any artist, anybody that's any kind of creativity. This is something to get
Yeah.
because, and a lot of people look at, well, it's cheating. I've talked to some of the small press guys. Well, we still like doing our pencils, and we like our stick guys, and I'm like, and that's fine. That's you.
There is nothing
There's
wrong
nothing
with it.
wrong with it.
Yeah.
It's just another tool that you can use,
Yeah.
and this tool just lets me I can be creative and be faster at it.
Mm-hmm.
I can ink straight away. I don't even have to. I can go straight to ink if I want,
Yeah.
and I can do the coloring and shading and all the stuff, and explosions. It's just so cool to how this thing works. So yeah, I'm impressed with myself. Sometimes I look at it and go, that's not half bad, and a lot of it just starts with me just sitting down and playing with the brush and a sponge.
Yep.
Like, let's try this, let's try that.
So comic books, obviously, that kind of brought us together, making them. But you've been interested in them, I think, for a little while, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So one question I will probably ask everybody that I get on this podcast is favorite comic book character.
Spider-Man.
Okay. That may be two for two.
Well, there's a reason for that. I remember it was the What If series. I think it was the What If. Yeah, it was, and it had Spider-Man, Yellow Jacket, and Wasp against a guy named Equinox, and I think it was the What If series. But it shows Spider-Man. It was drawn by John Byrne, and it shows him rip a door off, and he's throwing at him. And I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I want to do this, And as soon as I saw it, John Byrne became my guy, and I like, this is so cool because just that medium, you could see the movement without it actually moving. And that's when I started really getting into the fact of comics is how can I make this look like it's fluid, but still like a picture? Because I took photography in college, and there's always be very careful where you're at. Get your picture right, get your aperture and all that stuff. And when you take a picture, that lasts forever. But now with the digital, who cares? But even drawing a picture, it had to be fluid. And then I remember seeing him at a mini Metal Ohio Con.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked up with my artwork and I set it down before him. I'm like, you're John Bird. And he's looking at me and he's flipping through my stuff. And he said, are you working? And I'm like, no. He said, well, you should be. I didn't care if I ever picked up a pencil again. That was enough
Yeah.
for me to go. I'm okay. I'm cool.
It was a few years after that I ran into him, I think probably at the same place, and ended up in a conversation with him about writing as I was embarking down that road. And he pulled me aside, kept signing everybody else's books, and sat and gave me advice
Yeah,
for what to do in writing. So it's funny that we had a
yeah,
big influence by the same individual.
yeah.
So
And it's. I
yeah,
mean, he's the goat. I mean, for me. I mean, of course you have Jim Lee and all the other guys, Mark Silvestri and all these new guys. But if you're going to go back, it's him. I love Arthur Adams, the detail stuff he does. But John's the one that got me really booked on it, and that was early '80s. And then at that moment, I started collecting. And I think my last collection, I sold it all. But
they stack up quick.
yeah, I was collecting almost 40 titles a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is getting a little
Mm-hmm.
overcome. So
Yeah. When you get to the point you can't read them all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's
bad.
a little tough.
We're going to shift topics a little bit. And when I think of you, I think of resiliency. So there's a number of things that you've encountered in your life, but I think at the point that I'd met you, top of mind would have been top building. And you went through something. And I'll let you describe it, but quite literally, like, how'd you pick yourself up? How'd you keep going after this? So I'll let you describe it because I don't want
Okay,
to take that away.
there's, I'll put it, there's multiple things that have happened in my life that everybody says you should write a book. And I remember going
Or at
back.
least be on a podcast.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember being at work and my boss walked in. He goes, I don't know if I should keep you here. I'm like, for what reason? He said, in 2 years, you've broken your leg, had food poisoning, 2 kidney stones, had your face burned off, had strep throat, and whatever else it was going on at that time. He goes, I'm not sure if you're worth keeping around. But in 1992, I was in the construction business and I was a masonry business. And I was in German Village, third story house, it has a slate roof. So I figured, what's 10:02? I'll pull up a bucket of mortar, go to break. So I pull up the bucket of mortar, but what I'm not noticing is I'm pulling the rope up, it's going over my shoulder, and it's laying behind me. Knowing that the pitch on the roof, it's sliding down to my feet, but I'm not noticing that. So feet are stuck, I'm good. I pull the bucket up and set it down, and as soon as I let go of the bucket, it starts to slide. So as it starts to slide, I start to reach for it, and I step back. As soon as I step back, I hit that rope, bucket goes over, the wraps me, pulls me, and I remember grabbing the edge of the roof, and I'm looking over, and usually on a roof you have a 2 foot edge. You can usually kick back and put yourself back on the roof. This was a 3 foot edge. So as I kicked, I went over, still had a hold of the slate, which was still in my hand when I woke up. But I remember looking down and I'm like, okay, I might make this, might not. I'm like, well, Lord, it's up to you now. And then I hit. Now there's the wall behind me. There's a concrete walkthrough. There's a pile of block, a pile of wood, and a pile of dirt. And luckily enough, I hit right on top of that dirt. But I landed right leg first, and when I hit, my face hit the top of my knee, and I buckled
Oh,
my knee. I had a compound tibia and fibia. Those twisted, went into the ground, and then it twisted, busted my ankle. Then I flipped backwards and went head first into a footer. And the guys who were there, some poor kid just started with us. Lamont was his name, and he was 3 feet from me when I hit, and my leg splattered. It blew all over him, and he didn't work after that, so he was gone. But they pulled me out because one, they
different
thought I
level of
was,
hazing, man.
yeah, they thought I was dead because my face turned purple, my neck was about this big,
Hmm.
and then when they pulled me out, they was trying to unwrap the rope, and I come to in a full swing, and I missed the guy, and then I passed out. Then I woke up again, and I was next thing on. He's holding my neck, and I'm like, I broke my leg. He said, "Oh God, yeah." And I'm like, it's compound. He said, "Oh God, yeah." I'm like, okay. And I remember blacking out, and I woke up again, and there's like 15 guys around me, and I'm like looking around. He goes, "Can I get you anything?" I was like, "I could use some water." And then I close my eyes, and they're pouring water over my face. Like, dude, I'm dying here, So then the guy asked me a question. He goes, "Where'd you fall from?" I'm like, it's up there. But to go through all the stuff, they finally get me wrapped up. They get me out. They get me to the trauma unit. I'm in a hospital for 2 weeks. I found out that when they're cleaning your bone, they couldn't put me out because I had a neck injury. And so I had to go through x-rays. And when they clean your bone, they pull your bones out of your leg, and then they scrub the outside, and then they scrub down to the marrow because I have bone or mud in the marrow. So they clean all that out. And they can't numb it.
Couldn't just go to a car wash.
You go, boy, I'd like to, but he even said, son, he goes, remember when we say you're going to feel a little pressure and it hurts? He said, yeah. He said, well, you're in a hospital. This is really going to hurt. He said, so if you pass out, don't worry. And I'm like, man, I wish I could have. I was doing Lamaze. I was doing everything I could just to keep my head together. I was crying, screaming. They put that thing in your mouth to hold down on. So they got done with that. I'm like, cool. And then they finally got to set your bone, which in itself is a whole other fun thing because you hear it in your head. And so they put 6 pins in my leg, and I go for almost a year with pins in my leg. It doesn't set, so they put me on cast, and it doesn't set. So they take bone from my hip and put it in the side of my leg, and it barely takes. Then they put you on a bone stimulator. Those are fun because at that time you could go to the mall and go to the record store and walk by something and erase everything in the room because there's stuff that magnetic stuff that pushes out. But so I wasn't allowed in any of the stores because it would set off some kind of alarm. But it took me 4 years to learn how to walk. I went from 220 pounds, V back, long hair, muscles, playing volleyball 3 times a week, lifting weights, and within a year and a half, I was up to 340 because I was still eating like I was when I was working. And so it got to a point one night I was trying to walk in my drawing room, and I had crutches, and I tripped and fell. And I smashed about everything in the room, freaking out. Bible fell down, opened up, and it was Psalms 56 or something. I read that, and I was bawling. I'm like, all right, I got you. So I got up, and that's when it hit me. There's always somebody worse.
Mm-hmm.
There's always somebody better, but there's always somebody worse, no matter what your situation is. So from that moment, I decided from now on, if anything happens in my family, I want it to happen to me. I don't want none of my kids or my wife to get sick. And he lived up to that matter. I got that part. But from that moment, I decided from here on out, I'm going to look at this in a positive light. And then, like I said, I broke the knee again in 2000 in a football accident. I broke it in five places, tore every the ligament and tendon loose. They had put 9 pins of 7-inch plate in it, and then tore the meniscus in the same leg. And let's see, yeah, I had burned my forehead off and my shoulder with a thing blew up my face, radiator blew up my face.
But you're still going to blame falling off a building for losing your long hair?
Yeah. Well, yeah. My long hair I loved it, but man, when you get concrete and mud caked in your hair for 3 weeks,
Yeah.
and you're in a hospital and they don't wash your hair till you can actually
You
move.
definitely had a serious Ronnie James Dio vibe going.
Yeah. And I had a lion's mane at one time, but it just got to the point where I decided that with everything that's going on in my life, I've got to look at the positive aspect of it. I'm still here. I still got a day to breathe. I'm waking up. The sun's still shining. I still got my family, So regardless of what I'm going through, I mean, in 2016, I walked out of work on October 12th, my 10-year anniversary at where I worked. And then as I was walking to the car, I kept getting slower. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then my leg wouldn't move. So I'm like hobbling to the car, get home, call my son, you got to come out and get me. And he was, what's going on? I'm like, I can't move my leg. So I get inside, I call my hospital. They go and say, you get to see a specialist. So I go to my guy. He's retired now. I was the last person he did surgery on. And I walk in, he goes, you're like a bad penny, man. You show up all the time.
He wasn't like, ooh.
No, yeah. He was looking at it like, oh my gosh. So I come in my knee, and he goes, your knee's toast. It's just crapped out. He said, let me see what I can do for you. And then I got up and started to move. He said, what are you limping for? I was like, well, my hip hurts. So he took an x-ray of my hip. He said, oh, no. He said, you need a hip first. I'm like, all right. So we scheduled surgery. I get my hip replaced. But what I didn't know was I had so much arthritis around my lower back that when they bend you backwards and twist you, it cut through my L5. And all that bled out into my spinal cord. Didn't know it though. I thought I was recovering. So I go from that and I go have knee surgery. So they replace my entire knee. And then I'm still, everything's working well. I mean, I will say one thing, have them replaced, perfect, great stuff. But I kept wondering, why can't I move my leg? And so finally, I was there with my knee guy at Ortho 1, and he said, let me see something, man. Sit down for a second. So he raised my leg up. He goes, how's that feel? I'm like, it feels great. So he grabbed his leg, lifted up, and I thought everything exploded. He said, you have a spine problem. So they hooked me up with the other Ortho 1. I went and see them, and lady walks in. She says, well, we know what's wrong. I'm like, okay. And I said, where's my doctor? Well, he's busy with somebody else. So what, how do we fix it? Well, we're going to do spinal injections. So I'm like, okay, so does that fix it? Well, no, that just calms down the pain. And like, so how do I fix it? And she goes, well, I'm like, where's my doctor? And finally he comes in. And that's when I get the news, there's no surgery, there's no magic pill, there's nothing we can do for you. You're completely disabled. You'll be lucky to put your shoes on. And so, me being who I am, I stood up and pointed my finger in his face, and I kind of got a little emotional and went off on him. And he's backing up. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Newsom." I'm like, "Dude, and that's when I noticed that I'm losing control of who I am.
Mhm.
And so I back off, and I'm like, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's just I know." And he goes, "Man," he goes, "5 years down the road." I'm like, "Dude, 5 years, I'll be dead. I got to be able to move." He said, well, try to stay mobile and lose weight. I can't walk. Like, how am I supposed to do this? So when I left that, I had to come to grips with that, had to get on disability, and all that was pushed through really quick. So I'm like, all right. And I had trouble with marriages and things were going on there. And I finally decided, all right, I'm
Just for
dropping weight.
clarity, marriage, not marriages, right?
Just one marriage, yeah. I've been married. I'm going on 39 years right now.
Yeah.
But I got to the point where I said, I've had enough. And so I had cut out pop, chips, candy, fast food. I started walking. I was walking 5 miles a day. I lost 70 pounds in 6 months. And I started feeling great. And then COVID hit.
Hmm.
And that took me down for 6 weeks. And it was bad. And then finally come out of that. I only stopped breathing one night. And I fought through that. But
Percentage wise, not bad, right?
no, that's
Okay.
that's pretty good compared to my buddies that have died from it.
Yeah.
I come out of that, and then decided to go to my wife's house and mow the grass. And so, got my big mower out. Of course, it don't run, so I'm trying to push it. And okay, there's a little trouble. Nobody's home, so I finally start mowing. And there's a hole in the backyard. I hit the hole in the yard, and it smashes my spine. And I'm like, oh no. And so I get back up to the front, put the thing in, get my car, get home, and I call my mom. I can't walk. And so they call my brothers. They come over, get me in the bed, and I lay there for 2 days in agonizing pain. I mean, bawling, and I can't move, can't go to the bathroom, can't eat, can't do anything. And I finally said, Mom, I gotta go to the hospital. And so they call the squad. Guys come in. They shoot me with ketamine. Woo! That's good stuff. I've never been that high in my life. But they packed me up, take me to the hospital. Same thing. Nothing we can do for you, man. So I'm like, all right, cool. Thanks. So they get me back home. Got to get my brothers to get me back in the house. So it takes me another month on a walker to learn how to walk again. And from that point till now, it's been a struggle. So all my 70 pounds came back. I've fallen 6 times in the past 5 months. One fell and busted my teeth. And but I still look at it like I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still moving. I still got the iPad. I still got my base. I got things that I can do, and I still go and take care of my son. But all that And that's just a nutshell of few things that happen in my life.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that you have to get up and put on a face.
Well, and I think we've got some similarities when you take your lumps, and it's not that they don't hurt,
Right,
but I've never seen you play the victim card, right?
right,
Like, yeah, some shitty things happen, but we're gonna get through it,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So I've always appreciated that about you for sure.
yeah.
I'm gonna switch topics again here, and
Cool.
then I'm gonna take you back kind of to where you started into. I don't know if it was body painting is synonymous with the haunt industry. If you got into both together or if it was individually, but take me back to those. And then I think the core of my question is really going to be again, seeing some things from the outside. Um, I know you're deeply a man of faith, but I also saw you getting a lot of slack about doing the body painting. Um,
Right.
so the core question is going to be just kind of how did you balance that? How did you kind of get through it, or didn't you get through it? But starting kind of back into like how did you even end up like taking that detour from music and art right into the haunt industry?
Well, I've been doing makeup since I was a kid.
Okay.
I remember going to see The Exorcist when I was like 15. And I'm sitting there going, how do you do that? How do you do that? Like, I'm not hiding under bed. I want to know how they
Well,
did
and I know
this.
one of your favorite bands, so
Yeah. Yeah. Kiss is one of my favorite bands. I like seeing them guys like, hey, I'd like to do that for a living. Music and makeup. Hey,
yeah.
cool. And artwork because they're comic book characters too. But I got into doing the makeup thing. And so I started then with a friend of mine doing a home haunt. So I dressed up as a werewolf and I found spirit gum. I'm like, hey, this is cool. You can glue stuff on your face. And so I cut my own hair and glued it to my face, not knowing you have to have a spirit gum remover. So my hair was stuck to my face for like a week. So yeah, I looked like an idiot. And you try tearing off, and I tried making my own stuff. And then I'd found Dick Smith's makeup kit. It was at Children's Palace. That
I
shows you
remember
already.
those.
And so I bought this kit, and it's got Flex Flesh, which is now called gelatin. But it also had a thing in there you could call Dick Smith. So, but at that time, a 3 minute conversation would cost you $10, and that was a lot of money back then. So I didn't get to call him that much, but I did call him. And then you'd send him pictures, he'd send stuff back, and so that was cool. So that kind of like started the process.
Okay.
Then I kind of got swayed away from it and got into the music and art and all the other stuff. And then in 2005, my nephew had his own home haunt. And he said, can you come over and help me? I'm like, yeah, I'll do my clown character and we'll have some fun. And then he said, hey, I'm going to join Terror Park. I'm like, okay. And not knowing that Terror Park was 5 minutes from my house. So it was at Cooper Stadium here in town. And so he, won't you come in and try out? And I said, well, you need to ask them first. So he contacted the owner, and the guy said, well, we got enough people. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And so, but my nephew kept bugging him. And finally, he said, well, just have him come in and try out. So I go in. I usually use latex and grease paint. And I walk in, and there's a whole group of people and don't know anybody. Some new makeup artist there. I'm like, how you doing? And so they're using this new stuff called water-based paint. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. And then I'm looking at these books, and it's Nick and Brian Wolf. And I like don't know them. They're from Universal Studios. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And so this girl sits down and says, well, you want to try out just here? And I open it up, there's a red skull. So I'm like, I'll paint this on her. So I got my nice purple long sleeve shirt on, and I'm painting her up. And me personally, I'm looking at it going, this looks like crap. And then the whole room is silent. And I turn around, they go, come back here. And I turn and look at them like, oh, that don't look that half bad. And that's when I said, listen, I'll come in and help out. I'll bring in my stuff. And that way I won't sign no contracts. You got you, and I'll do everything for free. I'm not here to make any money. I'm just here to have some fun. So I did my first night, and I'm looking around, and everybody walked out. I'm like, heck with this. So I grabbed my stuff, glued a bunch of junk to my face, put my leather coat on, and I walked around in the bleachers. Never said a word to nobody. And then I got back down, took all my stuff off, cleaned myself up, wait for makeup again. Helped them clean the stuff up, say goodnight. And then everybody's going, who is the zombie? And I was like, So I developed my own face for that. And then within like a
So that was the
month,
genesis of Keith.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I met one of my buddies at work, and I'm like, hey, I'm working for this, haunt. Like, would you want to come in with me? He said, yeah. And I said, so what are you into? He said, I'm into Resident Evil. I'm like, well, let's create our own scene. And so his dad built these big chambers for us. And his dad's name was Connor. His mom's name was Lynn. And so we're sitting trying to come up with a name. I'm like, well, how about Lincon Corporation? He goes, that's cool. So we developed this thing and it went through every hunt with us. But so I started with that. And as I progressed, I got to be the head makeup artist. So I was head makeup artist for that. And then they had this thing called the Midwest Hunters Convention. And so the first convention, they said, we'd like you to come and help us. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? And they said, well, just kind of keep guard and keep things in check. And I'm like, all right. So I go up and I'm watching and see things going on. And then the guy who was at the makeup artist was with me at the very first Terra Park thing was painting a girl, but he was behind. And the other person supposed to be doing her face couldn't make it. So they called me and said, hey, can you come here and help us? And I'm like, yeah. So I walk in, there's six women being painted, and doors wide open, people walking in and out. And this girl's name is Jen. She's from Quebec. And she's looking at me and and I introduced myself. And I'm like, is there any place that I'm not supposed to touch you? She said, don't touch my belly button. Gotcha. I said, if I ever touch you with anything, it'll be my pinky. And she's like, okay. And her boobs are still not painted. Everything else is kind of painted, but I like, first thing we're doing, we're going to put, these are going to be balloons. You got balloons on your back, and we're going to have spiders all over you, and you're a clown. You're going to have wraps on your leg. And so I'm start painting her, and then somebody walks in the door, and I'm like, oh, stop. Like, close the door and go back out. And so immediately I became the protector of these people. And all the artists in the room said, thank you. And so I'm like, okay, that's something that needs to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So I found one of the guys that I trusted. Hey, man, come here, stand by the door. Don't move from this door. So that started. And then once we got done painting, they went out and did a whole show on the stage. And generally, you have all women. You have some guys get painted, but guys not usually because they have hair. Unless you're at the Arnold Classic, then we paint all kinds of guys. But so that started there. And then as I was getting ready to walk away, Jen walked up beside me and latched my arm. And she said, you're my painter. You with me? And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, so guys would walk up and always try to reach around and I just grabbed her arm. No. She can touch you. You can't touch her. And no one up to this date has done that. So I'm like, and then the guy who was running the operation watched me and he said, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. He says, so next year we're going to do this again. I'd like you to help with the body art. He goes, I'd like you to paint, but also like you to be. And I'm like, all right, man. So
be yourself, right?
yeah. And so his wife ran it, and I was like the director of it. And so us together, we made it work. And so each year I would come in and I would try to always have an assistant with me, one who's never been behind the table or like a comic book show. Here, come on behind the table, sit down and draw. Like Jessica, we did from Lyceum at one time. I'm like, can you sit up? And she's like, oh. So it's getting somebody new to do something and to give them that ability to get on stage with me and to be in the room. And so each year I had a different assistant with me. And we worked in different mediums. We worked in UV paint. We worked in regular paint. We worked with certain designs, certain themes. And so the following year come in and Jen said, I want you to paint me. And I'm in a room with Pasher and Nick Herrera and all these international body painters. They don't know me. I don't know them. But the first show I did, I was Pasher's bodyguard. And he was painting this girl black with red flames and a skull face. And a guy walks up to me, and there's a car show going on in Columbus at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A guy walks up, hey, man, can I talk to you? And I'm like, hey, he said, can I have her come outside? And I'm like, why? And he said, I got a car. And I'm like, hey, P, I'll be right back. I go out, he's got an old coupe, black with red flames and skulls all over it. I'm like, oh, yeah. So go back in, we get her, we walk outside, and she's just like on, Sports Illustrated all over this car.
Right.
Everybody's taking pictures. And I'm like, okay, I found something I can do here. So I'm a bodyguard, I can protect them. And that's when I developed the fact that this is something that if it's going to be done, It's going to be done professionally. It's also going to be done to the point where if anybody's around us, everybody has to have an escort. Everybody, no one can touch the women. No one get pictures with women unless they say so. And it just got to the point where I started helping out with this, and then I become known in the community. And I think my last conversation
Again, in another community
in
this
another
time.
community, yeah,
That's why everyone knows you. Yes.
yeah, and it's just the fact that again, I'm treating them as a professional, how I want to be treated. They're not, they're not just models. They're people. They have things that they want to do. They're naked for a matter of maybe 10 seconds until you put paint on them. And because I'm not looking at this is a naked blonde in front of me, I'm looking at this is a living canvas who's an actual living being. So I got to make sure that she's comfortable. I got to make sure that I'm comfortable, and my design's got to come alive on this thing, and not just come alive. She's got to make it come alive.
Right.
And the body art community and the haunt community are pretty darn close, but it's also separate to a point because there's the advertising aspect of it, like Playboy and all that other stuff. Where in the haunt community, what I do there is I face paint and I create stuff, but you got to be done in 5 minutes.
Right.
So he sits down, where are you at? What are you doing? What's your character? Out. And so every line's got to count and it's got to be perfect. And I tell everybody as I teach in my classes, it's not rocket science. It's not, over the top. You learn 2 skulls, you learn 2 zombies, 2 clowns, 2 cuts, 2 bruises, 2 scratches, whatever. And you just take those and combine them. It's sort of like buying 5 suits, a brown suit, green suit, red suit, whatever, and you just switch the pants and the shirts. You have 75 suits out of 5, just by switching the things. You have the same shirt, same tie, just different tops, different ways. And
Now, famously, you told us, and I think it was Hunter Productions, it wasn't enough to draw somebody, sitting at a table. You got to know what they had for breakfast that day.
correct.
You got to know everything else. Did you apply that to your characters that you were
Yes,
painting?
yes,
Okay.
yes. If my favorite character is somebody who's been locked in a stairwell for a long time because they're pale, they're gaunt, and they eat their own crap. So I had a character called Uncle Papa, and we would take peanut butter and put it on a plunger and on one side. And I'd walk in the toilet and I'd flush the toilet and come out like, hey, you want some pork pudding? And I would lick it. Now I had stuff all over my face and I looked like junk laying all over me. So just doing that was a gross
Yeah.
scare. And it's something to do something. There's multiple scares in the haunt industry. So doing the paint for that is if they're like, where are you at? I'm in the insane asylum. Okay, which part of the insane asylum? Well, I'm in the caged area. Do you have a straight jacket on? Do you not have a straight jacket on? Are you bound? Are you chained to the wall? What's your name? What's your character? Where are you from? How'd you get there? So I'm interviewing as I'm painting them. And so that gives me a background. I said, what's your name? Well, I'm Jay. No, what's your character name? And so I'm giving them that as they go. But if they're in a insane asylum and they're in a caged area, they're going to be running into the thing. They're going to have cuts on the faces like a cage looked. They're going to be bleeding. They're going to have black eyes and cuts and wounds. So I utilize that as an aspect. What's the lighting in the room? You can't put red on red light because it washes it out.
Gray.
So a lot of times I'll put the paint on my arm and I'll walk through the haunt as it's going on and I read my arm out like lighting and I write it down so I know where I'm at.
Sure.
And but that's a lot of different aspects to the fact of makeup versus body painting. They're still along the same lines. One, you could take 5 hours to paint a woman. One woman can take 5 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Where I could take 5 minutes to paint somebody. But my whole thing is in the haunt industry, you can spend an hour on somebody and make them look like they just walked out of the scene of The Exorcist, and they can go into a house and go, huh. Or I could
Right.
spend 3 minutes on you and you go out and kill it because makeup is just accessory to the actor. So, and I've taught at Midwest Hunters Convention, Trans World. I've taught at in Chicago. I've taught in Illinois, St. Louis, and they fly you there like, hey, do something. So it's cool because I try to make sure that anybody that I'm teaching, I was on a bus tour and a guy was watching me the whole time, and he come and talk with my class, and I was painting, and I took a sponge and I was smacking somebody's face, and I'm trying to look at him like, see, it don't really matter, it's just paint, and I just keep doing my thing. He goes, dude, you just lifted 1,000 pounds off my shoulders because You just made it look so easy. I'm like, it's just paint. You
Yeah.
can paint over it. It doesn't matter. And it's like music. If you mess up, just re-record it. You're good.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So now, with all that context, I'll go back to the core question of, as you were doing all that, again, I saw a little bit from the outside, but it seemed like you were getting some pushback and stuff from
Yeah.
your other community, the church
Yeah.
community.
Church
and
community.
and how did you navigate that? What was kind of the end result of that? Just for my own curiosity, I was like,
I
what?
was
There's nobody I would have ever second guessed their motives. So to seen some of that come at you surprised me.
right.
So that's what I
I
was
I
curious about.
had a lot of negativity from the people that I cared a lot about. And so I went to my pastor of my church and said, listen, this is what I do. Showed him pictures. Like I said, there's nothing sexual about this. There's none of this. This is just strictly advertising. It's artwork and that's all. It's a living canvas. I said, these people think that I'm in this room, in a dark room with this person all by, like, no, there's 50 people in the room. There's photographers, there's movie people coming there, all kinds of stuff going on. And it was just to the point where like, if you question what I'm doing here, you're questioning my integrity.
Right.
And that bothered me. And then it got to the point where my wife said, I don't want you painting anymore. So I called Pasteur. I'm like, hey man, I got this dilemma. What do I do here? He said, well, you got three options. He said, you can do what your wife says and quit painting. You can divorce your wife and keep painting, or you can just keep painting and deal with the problem. And I'm like, well, and so I decided I'll just retire. That didn't last long because the next year they said, you're director, we need somebody to paint, we need you to paint. And so I told my wife, well, won't you come in with me? She goes, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, I'm just trying to help you out to let you see what it is. She goes, I'm not interested in it. But I said, but you don't want to do it. She goes, the only person I want you touching is me. I'm like, well, then that's cool because you're the only person I'm touching. I don't touch these people. I use a brush and a sponge. That's what touches them. If I do touch them, it's with this pinky. I'm going to touch you here to draw this line, and that's it.
I like that it's a designated pinky.
Yeah,
That's great.
it has to be because it's a airbrush thing. When you're painting, you can put your thing and you do this, or you can hold your finger here and paint.
Okay.
So it guides you, keep your hand from doing this. So
It's like playing pool.
exactly, yeah, But it got to the point where it becomes such a hassle and such a fight and when I hurt my back,
Mm-hmm.
I went on a bus tour. I came back. I had like 4 hours sleep that night, and then I had to work the show, and then zombie walk as well. And I come in to paint, and I was painting with one of my buddies who is the master airbrush artist in the world, Matt Sill, amazing makeup artist. And me and him are best friends, been best friends for years. And then I'm like, cool, man, we're going to work together. When you have two creative forces joining one thing, it is. I was already tired, sleepy, and I was hurting, and he was late. And first model we ever had was somebody else's daughter that come in, and she was terrible. She wouldn't stand still. She would move. I can't wait to get done with this. I just want to go home. I'm like, why did you suggest to
Yeah.
do this? We told you you'd be here. Because my thing is when I'm painting a model, I make sure they sit. I make sure they're comfortable. But regardless of all that, the core thing is I got to the point where the pain was too much for me, and I knew my limitations now.
Yeah.
But the kickback from church was I finally had to tell them, like, listen, I'm like, who in here sells cars? And they're like, what? I'm like, you can't tell me a car person is always honest. I said, so if you're looking at them, so why should they quit their job? I'm like, there's things that people do to make money. I like, sometimes it isn't the Christian way. I'm not doing anything wrong. I can show you the pictures and show you what the artwork looks like. And when I show it to them, they're like, that's beautiful. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be demonic and all this other stuff. I stay away from that as much as possible. But my faith, I took this test once, and my three things that I have is faith, teaching, and giving. Those are my top three spiritual gifts, apparently. So
Lines up.
yeah, it's perfect for me. It lines up, and that's something I've always done. I've always been strong in my faith. I got no problem with that. If people attack me, that's your opinion. I'm cool with that,
Hmm.
and I don't matter. He loves you anyway. But I'm not. I don't put down anybody else. I don't put down their beliefs. I don't put down their sexuality, anything like that. I got a lot of gay friends. I got transgender friends. I got drag queen people that I know. I got Satanists and Druids that I know, and I treat them just like I would treat anybody
Fun
else.
fact, not actually trees, right?
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Who knew?
Okay, my last question will be a softball, I would say at this point, because you've thrown out a lot of people that um, have inspired you, that you've gotten to work with, or you've met along the way. But it's one of the things that I want to make a regular part of this is you're sitting here being one of the inspirations to me, is just to give a shout out to anybody that's also inspired you and that other people can kind of look into and find out more about. So,
One, you got me started on this whole Photoshop thing because I sit there and watch you do stuff like, wow, that's cool. John Byrne, definitely. Um, Todd McFarlane, Steve Hamity from McFarlane Toys. I talk to him regularly. Um, I would definitely say Nick and Brian Wolf. Brian passed away of cancer. Um, at our last show, I kept wondering, where's Brian at? And they said he's not feeling well. So that was tough. But Nick and me are really good friends. Pasher, definitely. Trying to go down the thing musically, it's definitely Kiss. Um, yes, Iron Maiden. Um,
favorite bassist?
that's
I
tough.
know. Not
Um,
here for the easy questions.
I like Steve
Just
Harris.
kidding. We are here for easy
Yeah,
questions. Yeah.
I like Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. I like Stanley Clark from Jazz. I like Chris Squire from Yes. Um, Victor Wooten.
Yeah.
I mean, there's each one of them has their own flavor.
Hmm.
Marcus Miller, and then you have Flea, and you have, you know, it's just I'm trying to figure out where I can pull from,
Hmm.
and I found out if I'm playing, especially if I'm playing at church, I don't play what they play. I'm playing what I hear in my head. It was like, like I'm playing an Iron Maiden riff
Yeah.
to a Christian song, but it's just I'm trying to add what I hear in my head. But all those influences have poured into where I'm at
Hmm.
now, and so that creativity is starting to come out. I wish I would have had this when I was younger because I basically closed myself off to just a certain number of bands when I was young. And now everything works. So, and as a musician, I will say don't ever limit yourself.
Hmm.
Don't limit yourself to one thing. Because when I used to draw, I used to listen. When I used to draw, I used to listen to the Aladdin soundtrack. Why? Because it was the only soundtrack that I had.
Hmm.
And so I would play it over and over because it sparked stuff. And then, because if I played the radio, it was like commercial, commercial. And I'm like, no, I want something all the time. And if I put in one certain song or one certain band, it just influenced that. Then I got into the Terminator soundtrack. Then I got into Alien, uh, it's like sci-fi tunes
Okay.
from all the different sci-fi movies. So it played a different theme. I'm like, okay, this is cool. So those two avenues always intersect somehow for me. But like
So.
Doug from King's X,
Mm.
he's amazing. You know, tall, blanky black guy with a 12-string bass playing it. Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick, who invented the 12-string, which I was very disappointed with when I saw him live, and he's playing his bass solo. I'm like, this is going to be great. It's like, I'm like, oh, dude, come on. So I
um,
have an 8-string that I play, and I love my 8-string.
I'm going to give you one mulligan, which is there's a name that you didn't say that I was actually expecting to hear.
Yep.
Frank Frazetta?
Oh my God, yeah. Frazetta is back to 5th grade. I
Hmm.
had a magazine that I bought at a flea market, and I seen this thing on the front. I'm like, who is this? So I started drawing everything in that book.
Yeah.
I go home and draw it out. Did the Death Dealer, and I still have that one to this day, and that's from way, 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 way back.
Especially, I look back to like when we came, to know each other. Your stuff wasn't in any way, ripping off or copying Frazetta, but there was definitely that influence there, and so, and I knew you were a fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Just because and again, that's paint, and I'm doing pencil,
Hmm.
and then I would try to find his pencil work. Now I'm going back with this iPad, and I'm finding his pencil work, and I'm bringing it in, and I'm inking it, and I'm painting it the way I want to paint it. And I was like, this is kind of cool, man.
A lot of options now.
Yeah, it's crazy how all that I go back and find John Bird pencils, bring them, I can ink them and
Yeah.
color them and do it the way I think it should be done. And I'm looking, everybody's going like, that's cool looking. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of wild. You know, I'm digging it.
Well, Keith, I can't thank you enough for doing this with me.
This is fun, man.
Yeah.